Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sarah, this is Brown Family Goods, and I'm so excited this week because we're kicking off a brand new series here on the channel, and it's called Fill the Freezer. That's why I'm coming to you direct from the freezer itself. If you're like me, you love a home-cooked meal, but you can't always pull it together every single night. Especially when cooking for two, figuring out dinner can be a challenge. That's why I decided to start this series. I want to show you exactly how easy it can be to work a little bit every day to prep freezer-friendly meals to take the stress out of making dinner every night. I'm focusing on things that are perfect for cooking for two, and I'll be sharing those with you each day along the way. You can follow along each day of the week by watching my YouTube shorts. So why am I trying to fill this freezer? Well, for starters, it's going to save me so much time in the future. With spring and summer coming up, that means warmer weather, and I want to be outside most of the time. Each night when it's time to come in and make dinner, this takes the thought out of all of that. So I'll have lots of things on hand that I can easily pull a meal together from. This week we're diving into 5 fill the freezer recipes. I'll show you exactly what I did over the past week. And we started this week with baked goods and breads. If you're looking for the recipe for these, as you're watching the YouTube short, click on the title of it and you'll see the recipe there in the description box for that. Of course, I linked the recipes here on this video as well, so go to the description box and you'll see them there too. We're diving into day number 1 here, and I knew on this day that I needed an easy win under my belt here. So peanut butter chocolate chip cookies, that's a direct yes every single time. So I just started with my very basic, simple peanut butter cookie recipe, and then to about half of that, I added chocolate chips. So I divided out some without chocolate chips and some with chocolate chips. So you can't go wrong with freezing and with making ahead and freezing a basic cookie dough, because that means anytime that you are wanting a cookie or a dessert or some kind of sweet, you absolutely have it on hand. Couldn't be simpler. You don't even have to thaw the cookie dough balls to bake them. I just typically set the oven temperature down just a little bit rather than baking them at 350 degrees like you would if they were not frozen. I set the oven a little bit lower to 325, and they may take a little bit longer to bake, but that just gives them time to thaw as they bake and bake up perfectly and get nice and done without over baking on the exterior. So, see here you saw I'm just mixing together all of these simple ingredients, basic stuff, flour, butter, sugar, peanut butter in this case. And I had measured out the amount of chocolate chips for the whole recipe, but I decided to at the last minute to put some to the side that were plain for Alan, as I said. So I just mixed in about half of those chocolate chips then. And I'll be honest with you, I love having frozen cookie dough, and I do one of two things. I either go and I pull frozen cookies out to make, or I just eat the cookie dough because that is equally delicious and satisfies my sweet tooth just as well. One ball of cookie dough and I'm good to go. I don't even have to bake them up. So the one thing you want to make sure that you do when you make cookie dough balls is that you freeze them separately on a sheet tray like this and then package them up into whatever baggie or container that you want to put them in. So I pulled out a smaller bag for the just peanut butter ones because I knew that I didn't have a ton of those, and then a bigger gallon-sized bag for the peanut butter and chocolate chip ones because I made plenty of those. Just label up the bag. You can always put the date on there as well. I know that most of these things for me are not going to last more than a couple or a few months. So I'm not worried about having the date on there. If it was something more long-term storage, I would put the date. But this will go quickly. We've already started to dip into these here and there. So straight into the freezer they go after I am done packaging them up. And we're on to day 2 very, very quickly. Day number 2, we're going to make cafeteria style yeast rolls. It's always great to have a roll with dinner, but when you're only 2 people, you're probably not going to whip up a batch of fresh rolls, when you want them. So having them stored away in the freezer is something so nice. And then you can just take out a couple and throw them with dinner anytime you want. We actually already had these one night. I brought home some pulled pork barbecue. And instead of doing buns, we did these little rolls and made a few little barbecue sandwiches on those, and it was so delicious. So this is kind of an enriched style roll. It's made with conventional yeast instead of sourdough. And so these come together pretty quickly within a matter of hours rather than overnight or anything like that. So you just bloom the yeast, first of all, in some evaporated milk. The evaporated milk really adds a richness and depth of flavor to this recipe. You can absolutely use regular milk as well, but evaporated milk is really, really nice if you've got it on hand. So I just threw all the ingredients into the mixer. And then this takes quite a while for the dough to pull together since it is an enriched dough and it's also a little bit of a wetter dough. It takes about 10 full minutes kneading in the mixer for the dough to pull away from the sides and kind of clean the bowl like it was. And that, if you can do it in the mixer, I highly recommend it because you might have to knead it for quite a while by hand if not. So after that, I just oil up a bowl, pour the dough over into there, and then it's going to go into my oven with just the light on, no heat or anything, to double in size. So I think this took me about an hour for mine to double in size on this day. And you see, Moose is parked right under my feet all day on this day because he is scared of thunderstorms now. In his ninth year of life, he's decided that he does not really like bad weather. The dough recipe that I'm linking to for this, it makes 20 rolls, and they're really a good size. So in this, I work the dough into a ball. You want to make sure that you do this step and create a bit of tension on top. Otherwise, you won't have nice smooth top rolls. Spray the tops. I always keep a mister on hand, especially for bread baking, because you never want that top to really dry out because that will affect how your bread rises or rolls in this case. And then next up, I put over a sheet of plastic wrap nice and loosely. And these just need to set aside for about 30 minutes so that they can kind of poof. They don't really need to rise hugely because they're still going to rise more in the oven right when you put them in. They'll have more oven spring left. But you do want them to kind of poof and almost fill the pan there. I just beat up one egg and then brush that over the top. That is what gives these the beautiful golden brown color once they come out of the oven. They look so gorgeous and, of course, delicious. At this point, if you wanted to sprinkle on any kind of seasonings, you could do that as well. So maybe some Parmesan cheese or some everything bagel seasoning or something like that. If you really want that, you could always do that too. I'm going to make sure that I test one of these out because, I put on a little bit of butter and I just quickly give these a taste test while they're nice and screaming hot. Yep, they're good. Then make sure that you cool these completely. I divided mine up into portions of two so that I could just take out that little portion whenever I want to. Again, all of these things that go into the freezer need to be completely cool. So they'll take a couple hours to cool, but it's well worth it so that you don't get freezer burn on your freshly baked goods. Now we'll move on to by far the easiest day of the week, and I highly recommend that you do this at any time. This was so good and could not have been more simple to make. These are fruit cobblers for two. So I'm using aluminum bread pans. Those are just little loaf pans that I'm using there. It's the perfect size for a two-person portion of this easy fruit cobbler. So I use 2 cans of fruit filling, whatever flavor you like, does not matter one bit. And then this is a butter pecan cake mix. So over the top goes, I just divide the cake mix among the 4 pans, and then each pan gets a half a stick of butter over the top. Now, you could take another step and mix together the cake mix and the butter, like cut it together like you were making biscuits or something, and make it kind of into a sandy topping and sprinkle it on that way. I'm not doing that on this day because I wanted this to be really fast. So all I'm doing is but putting the pats of butter over the top, and this bakes up perfectly. Don't worry, you're not going to have any dry portions or anything like that. It's all going to come together because the butter melts into that fruit filling in the bottom, bubbles up to moisten the topping as well. So it turns out just right. So I'm thinking, what am I going to call these? I don't know. I'm not sure. So it took me a minute to think of cherry crumble and apple crumble. I know that was revolutionary. So here's how it baked up. I did mine in the air fryer and it took hardly any time at all. Don't forget the recipe is down below. Noticing that I have a lot of sweets in this week. This is 3 different sweets and 2 breads that I ended up with. So, but this will take care of sweets for us for quite a while, I'm sure. This is the 4th day, and we're doing banana walnut muffins on this day. I had frozen bananas in my freezer, so I thought I really need to do something with them, and I could have done loaves of banana bread, but that would have meant that I needed to cut it and then portion it into slices or something like that. So I thought muffins is definitely the easiest way to go, sort of already pre-portioned, and then I can just take them out of the bag as I need them. So this was a basic banana nut muffin recipe, and I had also these walnuts from Costco hanging around in the freezer. You just need a cup of nuts. You could also, of course, skip the nuts. You could use different nuts, whatever you want. It's totally fine. If you put something else in, you could do chocolate chips, which would be the same amount, like 1 cup of whatever add-in that you want. This was so good though, and these are delicious because when you really finely chop the nuts, they just add some texture. They don't even feel like a nut in there. So they're really, really nice when they bake up. I'm just going to line my muffin pan. All I'm going to do is use my scooper then to portion this out and divide the batter among the 12 spots on the pan here. I don't add any kind of topping to these banana nut muffins because they're certainly sweet enough and they're just a nice, you could have it with coffee, with breakfast, or any time of the day, really. I like to just throw one of these into Alan's lunchbox from time to time, and I haven't really had to do a whole lot of work in order to accomplish that. After a quick bake in the oven, kind of turn these in the muffin pan to let the steam come out of the bottom. Again, you'll want to cool those completely before you bag them up and store them away in the freezer. And that concludes day number 4. The last day of the week, we're going to do some sweet cornbread. We like sweet cornbread. If you do not like sweet cornbread, I'll go ahead and tell you. I would still add the honey in this recipe, but you don't have to add the granulated sugar if you don't prefer sweet cornbread. The honey doesn't add a whole lot of sweetness by itself because only 2 tablespoons of honey, but it makes the cornbread brown up really nicely, and without it, you might miss it. So here I'm just, first I mix together all of the wet ingredients for the cornbread into my big mixing bowl, and then in a separate mixing bowl, mix together the dry ingredients and then add it all together. Now, before you scoop up and put your cornbread into your muffin tin, whether you decide to line it or not, you will want to let that batter sit there for about 5 or 10 minutes. And I went back and forth a couple of times while I was making these as to whether I wanted to put them in a muffin pan with muffin liners or not. But I was thinking, you know what? Cracker Barrel doesn't. So I was inspired to try not using muffin liners. So I thought, okay, I'm going to heat the pan with some oil in it. I wanted to make sure that I got it really greased with oil first. I put it into the oven for about 5 or 6 minutes while the oven was already preheated. You can see the oil is nice and hot now. So now I'm going in with my cornbread muffin batter. So if I was doing it in a cast iron skillet or something, I would do that in the same way. You can absolutely do the full pan, but you want to make sure that you preheat the oil and the pan at once, before you put the batter in, and then that way everything will not stick. And also, it really gives you that crunchy bottom on your cornbread that you want. Now, I will say for these muffins, you want to make sure you go ahead and take those out right away as they come out of the oven. Otherwise, they will start to stick to the pan. Y'all don't mind my crusty muffin pan. It's clean. It just never actually appears clean. I've had it for many years, and that's just the way it looks. So, this is the last one that's going into the freezer of this week, and I'm so excited to have all of these in my freezer. I really hope you're going to like this series. I absolutely appreciate you watching my video today. And if you like meal prep, I have a couple more videos that I can put here on the screen for you. So I hope to see you back here again real soon.
Wait a